My name is Emily Branham. I'm the director, producer, editor, oft-times shooter and sound recordist for Being Bebe, a feature documentary that's going to be closing night at Tallgrass.
This project's been with you, what, 15 plus years?
Yeah, it was 15 years in May, so...
Obviously, you knew Bebe before the rest of us knew Bebe. What was your experience like, you and your sister, getting to know this wonderful human being, but also the uniqueness of, like, my parents are South African, so the African community can be so vibrant. Her Cameroonian background is so a part of her. Can you talk a bit about getting to know her back in '06, way back in the day?
So I met Bebe back in 2006 when my little sister was dancing backup for her for a drag pageant in Minneapolis, my hometown, and Bebe's hometown in the U.S. And I was like, this sounds like an amazing short film. I think I need to be there. And fortunately, Bebe was open to me showing up with a camera for their foray into their first national drag pageant. And there was just so much more there than I even expected, having heard a little bit about her. As soon as I saw her perform, I was like, this person has more charisma and ambition and drive and just sort of like humanity than just so many of the other performers that were at the club. And I just wanted to stick with her and find out where that was going to go. And it was a process. The film kind of needed to take 15 years to fully draw out all those layers of the Cameroonian backstory. And I mean, of course, being Cameroonian is a huge part of Bebe's identity that's apparent as soon as you see her perform. Most of the time, there's an African layer to the numbers that she's doing. Especially lately, I'm so glad she's embracing it so fully. But at the same time, Marshall, the man behind the diva of Bebe, is a very private person as well. His family is very private. They have good reason to be, coming from Cameroon, a country that is in political turmoil and where people are very guarded about how much they want to share. And so a lot of trust had to be built up over time. And I just feel really privileged and honored that they allowed me access to their story and trusted me with the vision that I had for it and the reason that I felt it was so important to share with other people.
Can you talk a bit about Minneapolis and the importance of how that city may have shaped you and looking at the difference of people there? Because if you think of Minneapolis in one way, it's a very old school city, but yet it's the home of Prince. It's it can be a wild town. You can find little pockets of Minneapolis and St. Paul that you wouldn't expect in that area. It must have been really fascinating to grow up there, but also look back at it and know it's a fun town.
It's a really fun town. I mean, God, we've had the hardest year I can imagine, and have had to come to terms with a lot of things that were also present. But I love my hometown. My hometown is a city that embraces the arts. It's a city that has progressive values and welcomes immigrants from all over the world. And it's a great place to grow up. So in some ways, this film is a bit of a love letter to Minneapolis as much as it's Bebe's story. And I think it was important to Bebe to have that be a part of the story as well, because Minneapolis was a place that welcomed Bebe, that encouraged Bebe to be the most Bebe that Bebe could be. And I'm not sure every city would have welcomed her with that much love. And so, it's a really special place. And of course, Prince. I grew up listening to Prince, and I don't think I even realized how sexual a lot of the lyrics that Prince has are until I was in my 20s. I was like, oh, that's what he's saying? Because I just knew all the lyrics. Like, they're just baked into who you are as a Minneapolis-born person. My dad's a big music fan too, so it's just like part of us. So I don't know. I love my hometown. I love that it is such a place that embraces so many different things in one space. And we've got a lot of work to do on a lot of things, as does the whole country right now, and I think it's really important work that's being done there right now to look at all that. And I just am really grateful that we finished the movie when we did, so that we could touch on that lightly as we do touch on it, as a part of the Minneapolis story that's being told in the film, because yeah, it's just a really big part of who both Bebe and I are as people.
Knowing that you've known Marshall so long, did it make it easier, more difficult to look at the footage, to go over the footage, to edit the footage? Was it any part of it that was just like, I don't know if I can show this part of it, or how much can I show? I mean, compared to all the other work you do, which you've been able to look at other figures and give them their story, but I feel like this one obviously is personal.
Yeah.
Has it made it easier, harder, both?
I mean, this project was so hard. I will be very, very honest. It's just like no part of it was easy from the beginning. And yeah, it's really hard when you... I mean, how can you not care about the people whose lives you're uplifting and putting on screen? You know, like, you have to be an empathic person to do this kind of work. And so that's a fraught thing, and you have to make judgment calls about what parts of their story you're sharing, what parts of their behavior you're sharing, because, you know, so much of storytelling happens not with the words that are being said, but with the behavior and, you know, the moments in between that's being communicated. And I needed to have my hands on the edit as well myself to sort of like cut out the things that I felt were not true. Like, one thing that I was really sensitive to in working with Marshall is he does, you know, he has a bit of a performative protective layer that he puts up, especially when a camera's on. He freaking loves it. He loves to turn on. He loves to be the life of the party. He loves to just get everybody together, make them feel good. And it took a lot of time and practice for me to like figure out how to break down those barriers in interview. And so yeah, there's a lot of footage I feel like I just had to discard because I'm just like, oh my gosh, BS, BS, BS. Like, I love you, Marshall, but BS. And just really try to hone in on the truth of the person and the friend that I know so well and wanted to share with the rest of the world.
Well, I think we learned a lot about him. We definitely learned a lot about his family. And then, yes, that switch is it's amazing to see it happen. So thank you for that. I've got to ask, this film, your previous film, Legend, you've been able to go to amazing festivals. I don't want to just ask about Tallgrass. I'd love to know about your festival experience. I mean, whether it's up in Toronto, Sheffield. How much fun is just being able to show film around the world, and especially on a documentary side where it's about reality and real people, and you're giving, for many people, an introduction to people they may never have known, may never even get to know in any form other than from a distance. How much fun has it been for you along your journey through the circuit?
I mean, festivals are amazing. They're like, unfortunately, 0.5% of the filmmaking experience. You know, like, so much of it, you're just in the trenches in isolation. So it is just so incredible to be, especially now, like with COVID, like our premiere was not an in the cinema, everybody in the same room experience. So to finally be easing back into being in the cinema with people who are in the film, people who know Bebe, people who've never met Bebe before but are like, or heard of Bebe before but are like, oh my gosh, Bebe's story is my story. I relate to this person, and I'm finding out things about myself through, like, just being, I can't even put words to it because I just don't take it for granted anymore after COVID. And like, I don't know, I'm not being very articulate right now because it is a very emotional feeling that I have about it, because it is a really special thing. And while it's great and convenient to watch movies at home in our living rooms, and you know, I love doing that too, it is nothing compared to sharing a space with other people, sharing emotions with them, going through the emotional experience of a story and gasping and laughing and applauding throughout a thing that like you're just feeling on a human level. So yeah, I've never appreciated it as much as I appreciate it right now, to be honest.
Yeah, we've kind of had to come to reality with it, so it's made it even more important.
Yeah, but all that to say, like, you know, I haven't been to that many festivals, but yeah, my short got to play in IDFA, and IDFA was like, in the Netherlands, was such an eye-opening experience for me. Like, holy cow, the caliber of films that play there from all over the world, it like was such an education to me. So that was a real gift to have a short that played at IDFA while I was midway in the process of making this feature, because it opened my eyes to all the different things a documentary could be, and that was really liberating.
Yeah, I feel like the doc film festival circuit is a beast it's different than regular festivals, and it's something really important because it's championed, because there may not be a chance for a lot of those films to even be seen.
It's true, and they're good films that are out there that don't get wide distribution, and yeah, it's incredibly inspiring to see what people are doing.
So I've got to ask, what do you read? What do you watch? Where do you find your inspiration? Obviously, Marshall, you've known and you've told that story, but like legend, but like, what are you doing to search for the next idea? Like, what does Emily like to do?
Well, I would be happy continuing to make films about artists for the rest of my days. Like, that's kind of my main thing. I don't know, there's something about the creative process and the personal journey people go through in making things that I find endlessly fascinating, and I find myself consuming a lot more podcasts than movies lately, honestly.
During the pandemic, there's so many, yeah.
So many, and it's a great way to sort of be multitasking while doing other things. And, I cannot do another thing while watching a movie, so, but I could do dishes and listen to a podcast and get my wheels turning. So, I love podcasts about creative thinkers, like everything from Fresh Air to Design Matters. I don't know. If there's something that's about an artist or a performer, that's what I'm gravitating towards, whether it's movies or podcasts or anything.
On a technical note, if you don't mind, what do you edit on? What are you using? Because it looks amazing. It comes out beautifully.
Thank you. That's partially in credit to my amazing colorist, Pedro Padilla, who took in all of our disparate formats that we've filmed over 15 years and helped us unify them in the final steps. But Adobe Premiere is what I've been cutting on, which was great until they decided to disable the mini DV codec a few years ago, and I have loads of mini DV in my film from 2006 to 2010.
It's ruined almost the whole industry. It's sad, yeah.
It was figure-outable, but I just, you have to use Resolve to convert all of that media, and, found a way, but it's fine. It's fine. The tech is not the work, but it's a big part of the work.
As far as BB's reaction to the film, what is the reaction from BB?
Well, fortunately, I'm really relieved. I do think BB loves the movie. BB, I think, is a little uncomfortable with just how vulnerable he is in some of the stuff. I think, as we explore in the film, he's not real comfortable in that place of taking down the walls and showing himself in his vulnerability. But I felt it was really important to show that, and that it would only make people love him more to see that he goes through struggles as well as successes and victories, and how he processes those struggles. So, I think he embraces those moments too, even though they're uncomfortable for him to watch. But he loves the film. We had a really special screening in New York this past weekend at New Fest that I had to encourage BB to attend. He was not super excited to attend another festival, and like so many things, as soon as he got there, he was like, "This was amazing. I'm so glad you encouraged me to do this," because we were getting feedback from some of the outreach partners that we're hoping to engage with to help the film do good in the world. It's a bit of a Trojan horse, this movie. You think it's a drag queen movie and it's all sparkles and fun, and there's a lot of that, but it's also sort of a social issue story about what's going on back in Cameroon for LGBTQ people, and how hard that is. And so we're trying to build relationships with nonprofits who are on the front lines of that advocacy work and the decriminalization efforts around the world. So for BB to get feedback from those people, it just changes everything. For us to help make an impact on the human rights work that's being done in the world, I think it just, BB knew that the story was going to mean something, and that being able to see face-to-face people react to it and say, I'm talking to people back in Cameroon who are trying to get out because they're being, so persecuted. And this story gives a voice to those people and brings their story across the ocean to Americans and hopefully many more people. It just changed his perception of it as well, and made him even more exciting to think, made him even more excited to think about the work the film could do in the world.
How important is that side of the film? Because obviously you're reaching out to other cultures. I mean, I'm a big fan of the show Sex Education, and one of the characters goes back to Nigeria, and it's the same feel I had from your movie. The same lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, complete just blocking out almost of a whole society of people. I'm from Texas. We do the exact same thing, sadly.
Yeah.
So it's not even just across the ocean. How important is that part of the film and that voice of the film to what you're trying to show to people? Because I feel like if there's something that's going to live longer than just BB's story or anything like that, it's the movement that's going to open up.
It's critically important. I mean, I think as I said earlier, this was a really hard movie to finish. There were a lot of obstacles, as there are with every movie. And the thing that kept me going on it was that why, that impact potential that there is for really helping change people's minds, open people's hearts. I believe in that, and I think it's important. So it's really the heart and soul of the movie, and I want it to be an entertaining journey for people as well watching the film. But they need to process some things while watching it as well. Yeah, it was really important to me. And I think it was hard to get there because Bebe's not a super political person. Again, for good reason, you know. There's good reason to be protective about those things when you have family still there. So it was really tricky to figure out how to tell that part of it, and it took a lot of time in the edit room to figure out how to touch on those important aspects of the story.
Did you watch the RuPaul show? Were you a fan of seeing Bebe on there? Can you talk a bit about your experience? I think it's unique. Someone that knows Marshall, knows Bebe, seeing Bebe become Bebe. That's a cool perspective.
It was pretty crazy, yeah. Like, so 2009, he got cast on the very first season of this show. Nobody knew what it was going to be. I felt I had a lot invested in how it turned out because I had, you know, taken 3 years to be filming with this person, and, you know, we didn't tell the production company that we've been filming this documentary. Like, they didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know what it would be, but I enjoyed watching it. I think they're real smart in how they do it. Like, especially the first season was such a parody of other reality shows. Like, I had enjoyed Project Runway and Top Model, and these guys were like making fun of it the whole time through the different challenges that they put the queens through, and I just thought they did a fabulous job. But there's a reason it's become an international phenomenon. Like, I think they crushed it. I really enjoyed it. I was not sure Bebe would win the first season, and Bebe was very good and guarded and did not tell me. In fact, she lied. She said she did not win. She told me that, and I only figured it out as we were getting closer to the finale. That, like, wait a second, I feel like there's a chance here. And yeah, when she won the show, I was like, oh, maybe this is the end of my movie. And so I made a big push in 2009 to finish it, and it was not the end of the movie, but it was really important. And then, you know, after being on season 1, I was really proud of her. I thought she did an amazing job. I thought she really just handled herself with such dignity and poise and humor, and I thought she crushed it and absolutely deserved to win. So that was really awesome. All Stars 3 was another experience, and like all the gray hairs on my head, I think, came out of watching that season. That was really rough for me, but yeah, I also thought she did great. But it was just a really different moment in the Drag Race empire. And yeah, I think Bebe got out of it what she needed to get out of it, which was, yeah.
Definitely a different show vibe to it, what it was going about.
Yeah.
I love asking documentary filmmakers, what you work on obviously means something to you. You don't just dive into a documentary. You're not just thrown into it. Even if you are, you become invested. What have you gained from your work so far? How have you changed because of your work? Whether it's working with Marshall and Bebe, or, you know, Legend, or your commercial work, how have you grown as a filmmaker because you do documentaries?
I mean, I've grown so much in the 15 years of making this film. I've fallen completely in love with and learned so much about the LGBTQ community and world, and I am a better person for having bathed in the world of drag and in Bebe and Marshall's life and family. I mean, I'm forever changed by it. It was a huge, huge privilege, and I just feel really honored and grateful that I was in the right place at the right time and had the persistence to keep showing up. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it definitely does. So I know you're in the throes of showing this film, but is there anything down the pipeline, anything you can share with us about what next you're working on or what you're looking to work on?
Yeah. I would love to keep making films about artists. I would love to do it for hire, for anybody who would like that. I also, like I said, I'm really interested in podcasts right now. I think I might try to do one of those on the side, see what happens. Interviewing creative thinkers and makers of all types. So we'll see. There might be something about that down the line. But right now I'm really focused on making sure this film hits and lands where it needs to, especially in terms of the impact campaign. So that's my focus for the immediate future.
For my last question, Emily, because of what you just said, I'm going to put you on the spot. As someone who interviews and loves interviewing, if you could pick 3 people to interview for your future podcast, I hope, anyone, dead or alive, I'll even open it up, who would your choices would be? Anyone.
Oof, that is a really tough question. My number one would be Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, just because she gives a great interview, and she's somebody that I dug up every podcast interview I think she's ever given while I was editing this film, because I love the way she talks about the creative process and demystifies it, and I just think she's brilliant and hilarious and an inspiration. So she would be my pie in the sky living guest. Beyond that, I mean, I had a professor in college, Mary Zimmerman, who I just think is brilliant, and I would love to have her on the podcast. She made a show called Metamorphoses, which was like a performance art piece that ended up on Broadway, and I feel like she could have taken the route of a Julie Taymor and sort of pulled back on it in favor of continuing to teach, and I just think I'd be really interested to talk to her more. And number 3 would have to be Prince. Just Prince. Because
talk to Prince about anything.
Yeah.
Just have him play different instruments.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sad to lose Prince. Emily, thank you so much. Thank you for not only spotlighting Bebe, but Marshall, Minneapolis, and I know it was a long journey, but as someone who got to watch the film, enjoy the film, I'm grateful you had to go on this tough journey because we got to see it.
Thank you so much for saying that. It means the world that people are seeing it and responding to it so nicely. Like, it really fills my heart. I can't even tell you, so thank you.